and welcome to Tonic Studios. My name's Karen and today I'm here with Leo and we are going to show you today how to create backgrounds using your die cutting machine.
So, die cut backgrounds using your die cutting machine, hopefully a Tangerine, we all hope that you have one. We've got lots and lots to share with you today, different techniques using different products that might be your dies, could be stencils, could be embossing folders, for creating obviously backgrounds for your cards, memory books, scrapbooking pages, home decor even.
Well done.
I know, I remembered this time.
Don't forget, if you do have any questions, then just pop them in the comments and we will come back to those for you.
We absolutely will. So I'm going to start off, first of all, very simply for you. We're just going to be looking at some die cut backgrounds. So a nice easy one for you here. And I've got a couple of examples to show you of different ways that you can use this technique. And this is something that Christine does quite a lot, isn't it?
She does, and she always does some amazing samples for us.
And let me just grab my cardstock here. So for this one, we're just going to be using plain white cardstock.
This is a good way of making a cheaper card, shall we say?
Yes.
Because you can buy your white cardstock in bulk, so it's definitely a cheaper way of doing it.
It's a good way of using it. So sometimes when you get a new die set, I know a lot of our customers will die cut everything in white just to see how it looks.
I do that.
Exactly. And it's something that a lot of people do. So you've kind of got a reference point of how things come out. Because sometimes when you look at the metal, what you actually get from it isn't always quite what you expect.
Exactly. And sometimes as well, I like to cut them twice because you've got two of something that, if you've got two of something,
you can put them together to see different shapes.
Yeah, definitely.
Exactly.
Definitely.
So I have here, this is part of our Folksy Floral sets. This is the embellishments die set. So you've got lots of these little elements. So you can see in here I've got some flowers, I've got leaves, I've got these lovely little swirly bits, I've got hearts. And I had a bunch of these kind of left over, which I just die cut in white, like so. And our Christine, we love when she does this. This is definitely inspired by.
Absolutely.
So what you do is you literally just lay out all of your lovely little white die cut pieces all over the background of a card. So you could do this on a layer if you wanted to. I've done this literally straight onto
a card
blank. You know, it's super simple, no extra cardstock needed. You've just got your card blank, you pop your die cut pieces on. That could be it. You could handwrite a sentiment on the front if you wanted to.
You could.
You could put, you know, if you've got a banner or a tag or something pre-die cut, just write something onto that. It doesn't have to be any more than that. I've dressed this up with a really simple little sentiment. This one just says keep it up, which I've just done a little bit of colouring on and some drops, and that's it. That's a really nice, simple,
I love that.
quick way. And it's so simple. You just sit and play and arrange these pieces until you're happy with how they look, and then glue them down, just like that.
It's very good. I mean, if you cut these out with the adhesive on the back, first of all, it would make it even quicker.
Even quicker, exactly.
And you wouldn't get your splodgy glue.
You wouldn't get your splodgy glue. It's not too much. I've covered most of the splodges with drops. So,
the beauty of a crystal drop.
Absolutely. Great for any problems.
Indeed.
So that's the kind of very basic first step. You can then step this technique up. There's a lot of different ways you can step this up. So for this one, I just put some ink down onto my card background first before I then put my white die cuts over the top. So you can concentrate your ink in the middle and kind of let it fade out towards the side. You could kind of do like a swish across there. You could do some stamping in the background.
You could do the mirror to that, so you could have your darker on the inside, on the outside, bringing it in.
Yeah, so you're bringing the focus in. So you had a sentiment you wanted to put in the middle. You could pale your ink up or do less ink in the middle to kind of bring your sentiment to life. For this one, I've just literally torn a bit of cardstock. This is very not like me.
Not at all.
I had a lot of
funny.
trouble tearing this and being happy with the tear. It had to be the right tear. Yes. So yeah, I've just torn a bit of cardstock again to put my centre on. So this is just another bit of that cardstock that I'd inked. I had some ink left over on my brush, inked up a bit of white and cut out. So these are exactly the same sentiments. Pretty much exactly the same card. You can see I've kept the layout the same.
Oh yes, I hadn't noticed that actually. Yes, I like that.
Just slightly stepped it up from your basic version to adding a little bit more detail. But once you kind of start using this technique of just laying down lots of little pieces into the background, there's a lot of other things that you can do with it too. So Christine, again, we love her work.
Oh, do you know what? She comes up with some really, really good ideas like this. And I mean, obviously we would never want to take credit for anybody's
No, definitely
work.
not.
We will always say where we've got this from.
So this one is a very similar thing.
That is fab.
Now, in the background of this, Christine has put down a piece of our double-sided adhesive onto a piece of cardstock. So probably you won't be able to see, but this black layer is just a piece of cardstock, double-sided adhesive over the top, and then you lay down your pieces in exactly the same way that we were doing this.
So she's done a couple of colours this time.
Yeah, exactly. Bring it to life, you know, add that little bit of pop, and then you grab your glitter and you tip it all over, and everywhere there's space, you just press the glitter in to that adhesive and it gives you a background. But these are actually pressed into it, they're not stuck on top. Because if you know, pressing,
gluing on top of glitter,
not easy, especially when you've got
not.
little pieces like this. But doing it this way, I don't know, it gives you a different finish as well.
It
It's
does.
smoother, it's really lovely.
Yeah, it's like it's almost been encased in that.
Yeah, exactly.
That
Because it
surface.
kind of, the glitter and the cardstock are very, they're almost at the same level. They're not on top of each other. So yeah, I really love how that looks. And of course you can use other things in the background as well. You know, if you've got some of our confetti, you could use some of that. You
Dried
could even
flowers.
just do like a portion of it if you wanted to. So if you did only part of the adhesive.
Yeah, nice strip down the centre.
Exactly. Lots of different options.
Very nice.
Another way of stepping this up then is using colour and foam pads. So instead of using white on white or white on inked backgrounds, use colour. Cut lots of small die cuts and bring them into your background
But
then.
you can see this, Christine's actually taken it and made it into a pattern.
Yes.
So she's given herself a pattern, hasn't she?
So these are all using the same elements. You can see this is mostly the folksy floral. There's a couple of extra little pieces on this one. But again, mostly the same elements, but for very different looking card backgrounds, I think. From the same technique. So hopefully that's given you some nice ideas of how to really get the most out of your smaller die cuts. And I think they're really perfect for this.
Fabulous. Thank you very much.
No problem.
All right. So,
What have you got for us?
my turn.
Let me
Okay.
just shimmy this all out of the way for you.
I am going to be using a nice big die set. So I'm going to be using this big circular layering die set, which I don't have the name of because I left my packaging upstairs.
just called ornate
Ornate circular layering die set.
Yeah, exactly that.
It is what it says. So what I've decided to do with this is I've taken an outer edge, which is this large one here, and I've cut from some gold cardstock, probably Venetian, looking at it, Venetian gold, and I've cut my outer edge, run that through my machine, then I've cut my pattern in. See if I can match that pattern up. No. There's going to be a match somewhere. There's definitely going to be a match somewhere. It's going to click in eventually. Oh, it's not going to click in, is it? No.
Not today. Doesn't
Not today. No, it's not going to do that for me. Okay, anyway, you don't need to put it back in. I've cut my pattern into my gold layer. And then was going to leave it at that, ready to layer more on top. But I thought, this piece in the centre here, nobody's going to see it.
No.
Never going to see it. I'm going to harvest that. I'm going to gut my cardstock. So I took my smaller circle, so not the smallest, because I need the pattern. So I took the smaller circle, I cut that into there, which gave me this. And then I cut my pattern into that one as well. Again, it's not going to line up for me, but you know, oh, look
There we
at
go.
that. There we go. So I cut this one. That's another layer ready to go, but I want a layer in between this now. So I got some pearl card. Did the same again. Got the next layer down, cut my outer edge. Never cut your dies together. You've always got to cut them separately. You do not want these crossing. It's just going to ruin your die. Cut my pattern into this one, and as you can see, perfectly not lining up. There you go. Cut my pattern into that one as well. And when I glue this over the top, I stuck my first one down, glue this over the top. I probably wouldn't use foam pads because I don't want to have to pad this thin edge here. So I'm going to glue that down. I'm going to glue this one to the center, so it's gone from there to here, and I haven't had to cut into any more cardstock. And what I thought I'd do with this to finish it off, because I mean it's just plain and simple, cut in and layer in, nothing special.
And it could be in any occasion card then. You could leave your card
absolutely.
at this point
Yes,
until you need one.
You could.
And then just come back and add a sentiment
You could.
later on.
I mean, I've got a nice Mr. and Mrs. there that I've just layered. It's just anything that was lying on my desk. You could pop it in the centre. You don't actually need that one if you pop it in the centre. Look at that. It's so big. But I would put my sentiment probably on some foam pads to give me a bit of depth there. But I mean, if you've got a banner that could go across that, that would be lovely, just across the centre with a nice sentiment on, a nice bow in the corner. But you can stack these and have them ready, can't you, for any occasion. So that was my first try of this. So then I thought, well, you can layer on top, but you can also cut in.
I love how this looks.
It is so simple. I mean, probably I would line the inside perhaps. You could even line it with a bit of vellum or anything. So what I've done here is I've cut myself a piece of card, giving myself, and again I cover the back. I'm leaving it to show you, but giving myself a nice piece to stick afterwards. And then I centre my die cuts. So I'm going to start again with the outside one. Cut that in first of all. Then, once I've done that one, I would use this, but not for cutting. So this is my next layer in. So I'd pop that down. I'd centre it. And then I'd get my die for my next layer of cutting. I'd line that up. It's not going to line for me, you know that, don't you? Let's give it another turn and see if we get there. No,
Doesn't want to
not
find
today, not today. Right, so anyway, that would sit there. Then I would take this away, leave my fingers there, just slide that so it's out of the way. I'd get my tape. Oh, is that on my, it's probably on my sleeve. Thank you. I'd get my tape and I'd pop a piece there, piece the other side. And I can take my hand away with my die and cut that one. The same goes for the next layer down. So we take this one away, keep my tape, pop that back on, get the next layer die cut. She says, can't do anything with my left hand, you know that, don't you? Oh my goodness, it's so good.
Too strong.
Too strong. Again, using this for placement. So pop that on centrally, then die, cut side down, obviously.
Find the spot.
Get that ready. Again, hold that in place. Lift that, she says. God, this was so much easier upstairs. So it's over my fingers. I can tape that down. I can tape this one down and take my hand away. And that's in the right place, just for me to run that one back through again.
Nice. It's a really good tip for getting nice even borders if you are skipping layers on your layering die sets.
Pop that on there. Let's get this one out of the way.
A lovely new tape.
A lovely new tape. So glad we can use that now. We've been testing it for so long. So what I would do with this, if I'm having trouble, if I've got centres on my die cutting machine that There's a little less pressure. I mean, we don't have that problem with the tangerine usually, but make sure that you can turn if you need
using
to.
a smaller piece of cardstock.
Using a smaller piece of cardstock. So making sure you can turn if you need to. If you cannot turn, then you just have to shim slightly. And I mean, that's not a problem.
No.
Pop in a tiny piece of card, just a scrap. And I mean, quite often I tear a piece of card rather than, you know, I would just take whatever's by the side of me. And if I had, say, this little section here that hadn't cut, I would pop it back through with that on top of the die. So you've got your die here. Again, not able to get that off the magnet because it's so strong. So you put your die down. I thought that was matching then, but
Almost.
no. And then you pop that on top, tape it down like you would with your, you know, because you're going to tape your die down anyway. Pop a little bit of tape on top there, run that through, and then that should...
That's a really important tip with shimming. I see a lot of people putting a whole piece of A4 over the top.
I did it myself. I didn't know any different.
We didn't know any better.
No.
So when you're shimming, you're basically trying to add more pressure to the parts that aren't cutting. If you put an entire sheet over the whole thing, you're adding more pressure to all of it. So it's going to do exactly the same, just with more pressure. It's not going to work. You only want to shim the tiny piece that hasn't cut. Very important tip.
It is. So then all I've done with this is cut myself. This is a 7x7 that I've made because I know I've got envelopes for it. So I cut 7 inches by...
Probably 8.5.
I think it was the width of the cardstock. Yes.
So A4 width, yeah.
A4 width. So what I've done is I've just cut A4 width, and I know then that I could turn should I need to. But yeah, I just scored at 7, and whatever my overlap was, that's what I was leaving.
Gives you a good anchor then on the back as well.
It does, but I mean, if I only had 8, that would have been fine as well, you know, because that would have given me an inch there. So I've got that. I've glued it onto another piece of Venetian gold. So I've got that. I've got that showing through, and I would then take another piece. Have I got one here? No, this is one ready to go for something else. And I would cover that. So I've got that nice finish on the back as well. So that's my next one. Now, you can take this a step further. I don't know if it's a step further or a little side step in another direction, really. Again, with my sentiment, sorry, I didn't even mention my sentiment. You can always pop that on wherever you wanted. Banner sentiment, little tag on the bottom, little tag off a ribbon, anything you want to do with those. That's do. So my third one. Now this one is very subtle, but I am going to do this again to show you how I did it. So I have embossed these here. Now I'm probably going to have to show you over here for this one because it's very, very subtle. But you can see I've got 2 rings of embossing. So what I did for this one was the same again. So I've got my pattern die. Got a piece of cardstock. We're going to do this one.
Okay, we've got plates.
We're going to do it. I've got plates here.
Okay.
So I've lined it up just on top here. This tape is amazing. It doesn't take the top off the pearlescent card or anything.
We've been using this tape, as Karen says, for such a long time. It's been so hard not to talk about it. And then when we come down here and we have to use the old tape that we were using before, we have to be very careful peeling it up because this is so low tack.
Yeah.
But sticks amazingly. I don't know how it does it.
No. I think it's the pressure. It is the pressure in the machine, isn't it? Because what you find is when you are running it through with tape, the tape is sticking so hard. So if you've got a lot of tack on that tape anyway, the pressure is pushing it into your cardstock. Yeah. Well, it's going to lift the top layer.
We used to really struggle, didn't we, with
ripping.
So yeah, we love this stuff.
So what I've done, we are going to do this again, but I am going to explain it. So on here, if I bring this one back in as well, this is very, very subtle. So I'm going to go today for a mix between the two. So this one I've done with a thinner
Do you remember why this was? It's because you die cut the
I
centre
die cut it,
afterwards.
and that's why I'm going to go a little bit more this time.
Yeah, okay.
Right. So this ended up being very subtle. I tried one. Let's bring all my testers in. So this was my first one, and as you can see, I've got little tears here. So the tolerances I'll show on here as well. You can probably see through it. So I've got little tears where it's lifted there.
And yeah, this will come down to your machine,
Yeah.
your plate combo.
Yeah.
Each machine, like you say, tolerances.
It's got tolerances, yeah.
So when the manufacturers make these for us, we allow a certain range for pressure. And if it's between that range, fractions of millimetres.
Fractions of millimetres, exactly.
Tiny, but it does make a difference.
It makes a difference with something like this, because it all depends how thick your cardstock is. Well, I wanted quite a thick cardstock because I wanted to make this as my card front. So it did cut through a little bit too much. So that was on my machine upstairs. So the machine down here, I used the same plate combination, which is the green plate and the green mat, which is here. So we pop this down, we put the die on top. So it's the green plate with the green mat. And you should be able to get away with using the white plate, because that is your top plate. But if you find, like me, this is what happens, then you just need to take that pressure down. And the only way you can do that is by changing your plate combination. So it's not ideal, but it is possible. This goes for any die cutting machine that you have. I mean, we hope you've got a Tangerine, but if you do not, then you know you've got plates at home to do this with. So this was the one that I did upstairs. Far too deep, far too strong, cut in my cardstock. So then, instead of using that top plate, I used, let's get that, my raspberry plate. Now what you'll find is, with the raspberry plate, if you go to put that through your machine, it'll just
slide straight through?
Straight through the other side.
Absolutely no pressure whatsoever.
None at all. But I knew I needed to use my raspberry plate.
Because all the plates are different thicknesses.
They are.
Yes.
They are. So the raspberry plate, it does say on it, it's for embossing folders. But I mean, that just gives you an idea of what to use it for. But if you do need to use a thinner plate combination, this is the best way to do it. You manage to get the right thickness, and it is trial and error. So this was the one I did upstairs. I used my green, my raspberry, and I used 3 sheets of cardstock, and that was fine. And these are 240 because they're my testing card. They were in my little thing by the side of me, in my table tidy where I keep all my card scraps. But I've also got testing card in there for when we test dies upstairs. So I did this and it looked fabulous. So I did it twice. So that one went through, that one went through, and it was all fine. Then I die cut. And it flattened it. I did like the effect. Don't get me wrong, I did like the effect.
Really lovely. It almost looks quilted. It's not quite as fully embossed as a die emboss would normally look. It has that kind of quilted look to it. So
I did like it and I did leave it. But when I run it back through with the thicker plates, obviously that squished it right in then. So I did cut the hole and I did leave it, because what I thought was we could use that sentiment, which I've lost. There it is. And we can pop that inside on a nice little vellum sheet there, nice wedding card showing Mr. and Mrs. through the front. It's going to be glued in there and looking all lovely. But today we're going to try it again. So this machine here is obviously just the tiniest bit looser. So this is what I had by using the green and the white plate down here. Now this is not as bad as the one from upstairs. It is deep, but
got a couple of little cracks, but it's nothing like it was.
Nothing like the one upstairs.
Just under the pink card there.
Yeah. It's nothing like that one. So let me just show you this one. So this one is a little bit better. I would get away with this. I would use this, even though it's got cracks, because I'm going to be gluing the whole thing down anyway.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to be using it as a card front. You can put something behind, anything like that. I would use this as a layer. I would glue this down because I don't want any of those pieces coming out. But I would use that one. But I did want to go for this again.
Okay.
So instead of that, I am going to show you how I have shimmed it. And I've thrown everything all over the floor. But I like that.
So this is something that you may have to do with your own machine as well. Obviously, every machine is slightly different.
Yes.
Whether you've got a tangerine exactly like we have, or you've got a completely different kind of die cutting machine. So you're going to have to find what works best with your plates and your machine and your cardstock.
So I've got 1, 2, 3. Now we know 3 worked upstairs.
Try 3? No.
It must have been 4 upstairs, because these were stuck together. Or did I put another 2 on down here? No. It's definitely 3, because you can see that. Right. So I used 3 upstairs, and that's what gave me this quilted look. But I want to go for a little bit more embossed today. So I'm going to go 4.
Okay.
Let's try 4.
Let's give it a go, for science.
Why not? Why not? But this is the way we find out how we do things, don't we? You know, we try. It's a piece of cardstock. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's fine.
Feels good.
No cracking. That's what you'll find. You'll hear. So when you're running it through, you'll hear cracking where it's breaking through the cardstock. So no cracking, so that's good.
But it did run through. So if you find that as you're turning the handle, the plates aren't moving, you don't have enough pressure. You need to add another layer of something.
So let's lift that. Oh, that's nice.
I like that.
That's
Is it going to flatten too much though when you die cut the middle?
We'll have a look.
We'll see.
We'll have a look. So there's that layer going back. Again, we need to make sure we... So we'll line that up. The lights are making it really, really difficult to see this. You know that, don't you? This may not be as central as the other one is, but we'll go for it anyway. Let's pop that down. Take that away. Put that back on my die set. Have my 4 sheets of card.
Nice.
That I knew was working earlier. Let's have a little go at this one, shall we?
And you might find that the different dies are different. So obviously a bigger die is going to...
Because there's going to be tolerances in the dies as well.
Yep. And the larger surface area is going to work differently than a smaller surface area die as well. It's all just give it a go.
Give it a go. Why not? Why not? Let's take those away. See, because that has gone down a little bit already. Oh, that's lovely.
I really like that.
Me too. Get that off there. Now it's time for the aperture in the centre. So we're going to line this up. We're going to change our plates because we've got to run this back through. Now, the other thing I was going to try... I'm trying.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to try something. So for this one, we need our cutting plate. That's normal. Because we're going to cut this hole in the centre and we're going to need our top plate. Now this is going to squash my design down. I'm going to try and match it back up.
Ooh, you're brave.
I've
already learned those dies are not symmetrical.
I know. Sometimes dies are symmetrical and sometimes they are not. When they're hand-drawn, because everything's hand-drawn here, when they're hand-drawn, you'll find that there's little nuances that will not take the symmetrical route, shall we say?
Good luck. Godspeed. Yeah, it's flattened quite a lot.
Can you see that there? You've got where that design was. I mean, it is beautiful as it is. Let's take that away and show you that there. But it has flattened it a lot.
So you're not getting that nice puffy kind of quilty look anymore.
Let's see if we can. Oh, this is going to be difficult. Right, it's going to take a little bit of trying. So, you know, talk amongst yourselves. I'm sure you've got something to say.
Elevator music will come. Oh, was that it there? There.
got it.
Looks like it.
Wow. Oh, let's go for it.
Tape.
Tape.
I got him.
So one there. And one there. And we go with our 4 sheets.
4 sheets and a raspberry.
4 sheets and a raspberry. Indeed. I like that.
Okay.
I mean, probably you'd say, why did you cut the hole first?
Difficult to line back up afterwards.
Mhm.
You'd have to stack all of your dies on there first
Mhm.
to position the hole.
It is doable though.
Yeah, it is. It is. So yeah,
Probably,
if you
yeah.
laid them all down, put the hole.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, maybe do it that way around.
Mm.
But you know, this is also fun.
It is.
It's, you know, you can call this arm day. Tell your personal trainer that you know you've done arm day.
Oh, look at that. That's much
Much
better. Okay, and we'll do the same with this one.
Since we were so lucky last time.
Yeah. Go on, let's do it. This one, these 2 little ducks here. That's what you need, is these. Here's the 2 little ducks.
Yeah, but there's lots of.
I know, but if we get...
One of them. Is that it?
Oh
not
my
quite.
god.
There.
Is that the 2 little ducks?
Got him.
Wow!
Quack quack.
They're not ducks. There's just 2 little shapes that are facing each other.
They kind of look like rubber ducks.
Looking a little duck-like. Huey.
And
And
Louis.
Louis. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
And you can
I
see
think
this
that...
is much easier to go through than a die cut as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So you probably could, if you wanted it slightly more embossed, you could have added your 5th sheet on and it still would have been okay.
Possibly. There we go. But we've just got... Ah,
That lovely
that is
quilted look.
exactly what I wanted. Okay, let's show you this one. So this is definitely what I wanted. So I've got the quilted look. It hasn't broken. I'm going to flip you over. It hasn't broken the back of my cardstock. So the inside of the card is going to look as good as the outside, because that's the problem there. You don't want any breakage.
No.
So there's my card front, and then you can glue your sheet of pearl onto the back, like I've done on this one, and then I added a sheet of vellum. Bear with. Added a sheet of vellum that I've just attached there for a nice little different angle when you're opening it.
And also, it just reminds me of old-fashioned wedding cards that always used to have that kind of vellum.
That's what I was
sheet
going for. I
on the
love
inside.
that.
Yeah.
And I would glue that in the centre there, ready
Gorgeous.
to open.
Very nice.
So that is my 3 steps in making my cardstock. Sort of go that bit further. So you've got, let's move these out of the way.
So 3 very different looking cards using
Yeah,
the same
using-
die set.
Yeah. So you've got your layered, cut and layered, plain and simple. Cut them, glue them. Next, next. 1 card, done. Cut them all in. Another version, done. And then emboss them to give you a more subtle, but I don't know, a bit more expensive looking perhaps. Really, really like that. So that's my last one.
Lovely.
There we go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your die cutting help.
You are welcome. That's what we're here for. So you can use obviously your green matte and green plate to emboss basically any die you've got. Your any pattern die that you have, you can use this with. So we've got another example where this is the little finished card. Hopefully, put that there. You can see that. So we've done a nice embossed background again, and then just a little die cut layer on top with some more of that gold. You can tell we loved a bit of Venetian gold
We did.
this week.
We did. But you've got your green plate and your green rubber mat. Don't forget for the. Oh, you got
Did
it.
I cut this through? I did.
Wow.
So
Go you.
that's my card front. So this is I think it's an A6, could be an A2, one of those.
It's looking A2 to me.
So pop this down. So this is our Folksy Floral Primrose Frames die set.
I do like these, I'll be honest. And all of this fallout could all be used in card number 1.
Yep, yeah, you could absolutely use that.
Because if you look at these lovely little
petals,
that's
they're
the
basically
word.
long hearts, aren't
Yeah,
they?
yeah, they're 4 cards, aren't they? So if you cut this one, you could use that.
In fact, if I bring this in
alongside.
and we have a look at some of those pieces, that little flower is there.
Yes.
That little heart is there. So that's exactly
Wow.
what Christine's done.
Well done. Love that.
Okay, let's run this one through. So this
Come on
is
then.
just no shims this time,
Shall
just
I-
green plate.
Green plate, white mat. Are we swapping over?
Sure.
Thank you.
And you're here.
That's what I was saying about the cracks. You know then that it's just going to be
It's giving you that little bit more pressure on the card this time. So you're going to get a tiny little bit of cracking. Probably not a lot because that didn't come out. Sometimes what you will notice is that your green mat will start to come out
It does.
as you're running it through. That's a good way of knowing that you've got a lot of pressure going on as well. Potentially more than you were after. So if we peel this back. Oh, it's doing quite nicely actually. So a little bit of cracking potentially on the back of there.
But
Just a
again,
tiny bit.
not so much of a problem.
But a nice bit of embossing on the front of there.
Not so much of a problem if you're going to be gluing it down.
And then again, what I've done is just cut the next layer down on this die set. Out of some of our classic card, cut in the little pattern and mounted it onto a piece of gold card. Give myself a tiny little gold border around the back there as well. Super simple.
Lovely. And it just goes to show that your die cut doesn't have to fit your card.
No, I quite like the fact that it's a bit more, it makes it a longer, narrower card.
Very nice. Very, very nice.
Another super simple way of using a die cut, but not as a die cut. So next up then, we're going to show you some embossing using your stencils, which is something that we don't do often enough.
We do not.
We should definitely do more of. So I have 2 little examples here using one stencil. I found this upstairs. No idea when it's from. Someone will probably tell me.
It's a kit.
Was it?
It's a kit. It's definitely a kit. I cannot remember which one. I have a feeling it was all corners. I don't know the name of it. There was I think there was a rose corner. I can't quite remember. But there was, I do remember a few of the bits from it.
Excellent.
We've done so many now.
We have, honestly. so many. But it's kind of got a little distress piece in it. And I like the fact that it's in 2 halves. You've got like a hearts and circles bit. You've got these lovely little triangles down here, which I thought kind of lent themselves to being used separately.
Yeah.
So I have my more basic card. So if I bring this here, because it is very subtle and probably you can't see it on the top down camera, we've got the stenciled embossed hearts here. And then I have again torn my cardstock.
I
Did you
know.
see?
You must have been on a little tear-in streak last week.
Something like that, yeah. I was feeling terrible, obviously.
Terrible.
I've used another little sentiment, so I've gone for an HB2U. Kind of like more of a distressed vibe this time. Maybe shifted it slightly into the masculine side of things.
I think so.
Gone with a little bit of wood grain paper behind it. I've gone for, this is lovely rustic dusk mirror cardstock this
Beautiful.
time, which I absolutely love. It's not quite copper, it's not quite red, it's somewhere in between. And then to step it up, I've added a little bit of embellishment mousse through the stencil before I took the stencil off. And it just kind of highlights that little bit of embossing that we've got going on there.
It does.
So,
But I love the distressed look of it.
I do. I can see some of the hearts because they've got that little bit in them.
They're broken.
Love it. So it's exactly the same to set this up. We've got green plate, green mat, actually on the plate preferably. Cardstock goes next. So your cardstock always wants to be next to your mat because basically you're pushing whatever is on top of it into your cardstock with the mat behind it to kind of give it that cushioning
Give it, yeah.
press.
So the mat should be pushed through with the holes. It should be pushing your design through the holes,
Yeah.
shouldn't it?
The other way to think about it if you're using a die is you don't want the cut edge to cut, so it doesn't need to be against anything hard, it needs to be against something soft,
Yeah,
which is where your mat gives you that cushioning.
it does.
So tape this down.
Second-hand tape.
Absolutely.
Oh
Well, it's
God,
not.
that's going to last for ages.
So we've been testing this tape probably, what, 6-8 months?
Gotta be.
We've only used a roll each
Mhm.
because we don't change it maybe
No.
once a fortnight, if that.
Yeah.
Now this one gives you some great noises. Oh, is it going to do
Go
it?
into on this machine?
No, it's not.
Oh, this machine is a little bit looser, I found.
But can you see I've got the
Yeah.
I've got the mat tongue starting to poke out now. So the further it goes through, the more the mat is poking out the edge. Because obviously as the plates are pressing together,
It's giving you that pressure.
yeah.
And it's not stretching your mat, because what you'll
No.
find is your mat is further
It's
down
moved.
here.
You can see it's gone from here down to here, basically. Okay. So here is my stencil. I'm not going to peel that just yet.
It's giving you enough, because we can always shim it.
I think it has. It's a good way. Flip it over.
Yeah,
You see I've got that nice texture. It's not as much in the middle, but I'm okay with that because I've got obviously my sentiment that's going to sit towards the centre of both of these. So that's fine. So I'm going to mousse this up. I have sponge dauber, pot of mousse. I'm going to be really naughty.
Oh, if I were you, I would take a little bit out, pop it on my mat, and use it from there.
Do as we say, not as we do, but we use this all the time. It's fine. So I'm going to just go lightly over this. And because I'm using a sponge dauber, it doesn't go right into the corners because you
No.
don't have that kind of precision
No, you do not.
going on with this. But I'm okay with that because I just want to highlight the fact that it is ever so slightly embossed. Mammy Ali's going to tell me off for this, isn't
Oh,
she?
absolutely. You're not going to be allowed to do that.
Very naughty.
You're lucky it's me and not her.
I know. But yes, you should take your mousse out because you're going to introduce bugs into your pot. But we use so much that it's fine.
We do use it a lot, and we don't find that we have a problem here, but we wouldn't want you to do it just in case. We're giving you bad things to do here.
Yeah, like I say, do as I say, not as I do. Okay, so I've gone all the way over there. Make sure that is nicely out of the way so I don't, stick my elbow in it or something, which I'm always liable to do.
Want to do, yeah. Thank you.
Tape wanted to stay with me then. So peel this off.
Oh, that's nice.
So you can see you've got those lovely embossed hearts on that side. You've got your lovely little triangles on here. So I pop this over here. Hopefully you can see they have nicely embossed through there. And you can do this with pretty much any stencil. Probably more open stencils is going to be better than very fine stencils.
You are going to be limited with the size of the stencil.
Yes.
Because as you can see on here, you do get an impression of the outer edge.
I've even got the Tonic Studios
Yeah,
at the
with the
bottom.
Tonic
Probably you can't
Studios
quite
logo.
see that, but it is definitely there. So yeah, you are going to have to use this on smaller cards or smaller layers.
It's just something inside the size of that stencil.
But it's a really nice way of getting a simple background. Quite a subtle background as well.
Very much so.
Not too overt. So if you want to really focus on your sentiment, so I've just used some glittery embossing powder to really pop
Beautiful.
these. But it's a really nice way of giving you something else in
It
the
is.
background.
It is. And I mean, if you didn't want to go tearing them, we've also got
The
the
decor.
amazing decal trimmer.
I almost decoed it, but it's like, you know what?
I'm going to do it. I'm going to tear
I'm
it.
going to be brave and just give myself a tear through the centre. But obviously, this is only because this is a kind of a stencil in two halves. If
Yeah.
you had like a nice big square, with some of the older, bigger mandala
yes.
ones we've done, they would
Yeah.
emboss beautifully.
They
They would give you a
really would.
lovely kind of focal kind of background. Really, really pretty. So another way of using your die cutting machine, but with a stencil to
Yeah.
give you an interesting background.
Fabulous.
Right, what have we got next? Oh, embossing folders.
I love an embossing folder. Now, we don't have that many of them left with us.
We don't, unfortunately.
We have had them in the past, so if you are a collector of Tonic
may have
Studios,
some.
you may well do. We've done 8x8 embossing folders. We've done 6x6 embossing folders. We've done A4 embossing folders in the past. They were just before my time, so they would be probably 9 years ago, but they're still usable. They are something that you will always have and you can always come back to. Leo's done some digging and she's found some really nice embossing folders.
I have, yeah, just to show you some different looks. So I'm going to show you one of the ones that we do still have in stock first. So this is a bit of a different embossing folder. I don't know the packaging, so I don't have the name of it.
Oh, no, not me.
But I'll link it in the description below for you. So this has your embossing folder part here, you can see with the black, but it also has a die in here as well. So you've actually got a die. It's going to cut you a lovely little aperture as you do it, and a couple of pieces of fallout to use as well. So I have just some plain classic card that I'm going to pop inside. Just like so. And one thing you do need to think about, if you're using classic card, and less so with this because it's a die cut, but with embossing folders you need to think about whether you want the emboss or the deboss, and which side you want your cardstock. So with classic, maybe you don't want the weave on the front. Maybe you want less of a texture on the front, you just want it to be about the embossing, in which case I'd probably flip that around, put it on the smooth side. Let's do that. So then, plate combo for this. We tested this upstairs.
We did.
And we're going all the fruits.
Fruity. It's a fruity one.
Your orange mat. Pay attention to which way round your embossing folder is going on your plate. Remember which end the hinge is at. Top plate then is going to be your raspberry. That's why we say all the fruits. Orange and raspberries. There's a random sequin on there.
Oh, nice.
So, whenever you're using an embossing folder, you want to put it in hinge end first.
And what you'll find is you can push through until you get to your embossing folder as well. So it is
Tight.
I was going to say it's a heavier thing to go for. I'm probably going to knock these cards off.
More than likely.
And you can hear when you finish. And again, even though that's still here, I can just pull it through.
Slide it out. Nice. The reason that you want to go hinge end first, if you imagine as you're going through those rollers, everything is being squeezed in that direction. If you put it through open end first, if your embossing folder moves ever so slightly, and all of that pressure then is going to push towards the hinge, and there's nowhere for it to go, your hinge is going to snap. You don't want it to snap your embossing folder.
I've done it.
Yeah.
I've done it.
I've seen people do it as well. It's very, very distressing. If you're pushing in this direction, these two pieces are freely moving. They can move away from each other. That's not a problem. There's nowhere for these two pieces to move. So always go in hinge first. So this gorgeous die cut and emboss folder.
Look at that.
So if I just...
Oh, perhaps we should have had some green, Leo.
Oh no. I like blue flowers and blue
leaves.
Blue leaves.
Oh dear.
So with this one, like I say, you get this lovely aperture. So you could use this to put something behind it. You could put some glitter card or mirror card. You could have a sentiment behind here on another layer. You could have a nice ink blended background. Anything that, you want to highlight in your little opening. But then you've also got these gorgeous butterflies embossed onto here. But like I said, you can also use the deboss side. So
I quite like deboss.
I do as well. Hopefully you can see if I actually just fold that part over a little bit.
Chop him. There you go.
So this is the emboss side. So you've got, it's raised. Yeah? I'm thinking about this now. Embossed, you've got the raised side. So you've got all of that kind of extra texture on top of here. But then if you flip it over, you've pressed in, you've debossed it. So it dips in.
Nice.
Which is again a slightly different look.
But you can add a lot of detail with inks and things like these, can't you? Because as you're adding your detail, if you're sponging your ink through, a little bit of ink on your sponge, always less, always build up your colour. So you start off with a little bit of ink and it's just catching that raised area, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's very, very nice.
You can also ink onto your folder before you run it through. You can...
Too messy for me.
Too messy for Karen. I did this on a weekend a while ago.
And I was with you.
I'll see if I can link it below if you want to have a look at that. But you can add ink either on the emboss side or the deboss side, depending on which side you want to see, so that as it goes through, it kind of adds the ink to the card as it's all going through. And
because
again,
of that pressure, isn't it?
and it's only going to sit whether either the embossed parts are or the debossed parts, depending on which side you put it on. That is an option. We've also done the same embossing folder on vellum. Now, I love how embossing folders look on vellum.
It's very much like the parchment craft
Exactly.
type of thing.
It kind of distresses it. You get that really kind of bright white line on there. And again, you know, you can use the deboss side if you'd prefer.
You can.
What would be really lovely with this is if you took some alcohol markers, you coloured onto the back of the vellum into the embossed or debossed areas, depending on which you want. You know, that lovely subtle colouring kind of look to it.
Because you do it from the reverse then, don't you?
Yeah.
So you don't get any of the brush mark effect.
No,
then.
and it kind of
Beautiful.
mutes the colour slightly as well. So this one was our 150 GSM vellum, so the vintage white, I believe that is, isn't it?
The thicker of the two.
Yes, the thicker of the two. Obviously, if you use the finer vellum, you're going to get a slightly different appearance. If you use the pearl vellum, you've got that kind of pearl finish on there as well. So again, experiment, see what you get. So this is the embossing folder, one of the ones that we do currently have available on the website. We're going to go back though to the archives and have a look at embossing folders that we have had before, because they're just too pretty not to show them, honestly.
Very, very nice. We've had some absolutely stunning things.
So I have one here. This is one of the 8x8 folders, which has, hopefully you can see, this lovely kind of leaf design.
Got a feeling it was called something like Falling Leaves or
something like that.
Something like that.
And it has like a lovely border around the edge as well. Super pretty. So what I've done, I've embossed it onto mirror cardstock. This is actually a satin mirror. And I've done it two different ways. So obviously this is one-sided. I can't just flip my card over if I want to use the other option. So I have embossed and debossed. So hopefully you can kind of see the difference. If I hold this up to this camera, hopefully you can see these are the raised leaves on this side. And these then are your debossed leaves over on here. And it does give you a different look depending on which way you do it. So it is important to, before you put it through, have a think about what you want it to look like, but also are you going to be sticking things on top of it, or are you going to be sticking it onto something? If you think of this has got lots and lots of little raised areas. There's not really a lot of surface to glue onto.
No.
You're going to struggle to get something to stick cleanly, but then you've got a lot of flat side on here. So if you're sticking this down onto something,
it's going to be easier.
Yeah. Reverse on this one. Obviously all of those small areas are now on the back, so sticking this onto something is going to possibly be tricky, but sticking something over the top of it
is going to be much easier. Yeah.
Something to bear in mind. So that was our 8x8 embossing folder, and then I found one of these.
Vintage Tonic Studios.
Proper vintage. Look at this beauty. This gorgeous rose and swirls design. And for science, I had to run it through.
Obviously.
I dug it out at this point. So I put it through on a gorgeous piece of pink pearl. So this is our debossed. Debossed side. And the embossed side of
That's the beauty of pearl, isn't it? You can just
double-sided. Flip it over. Pick which side looks best for your project.
Oh, so nice.
And I think this would be nice. You know, you could just cut small areas out of this.
Yeah, definitely.
Imagine having a couple of these around your memory books.
Gorgeous.
Just little pieces cut out of it. Really pretty. And of course I did it in vellum.
Of course. Of course to be done.
Did.
And
so
again, emboss and deboss equally as nice as each other.
Yeah. So if you see these, you know, popping up on a project anytime soon, you know where they've come from. So that has run through all of our different plates that come in the tangerine. So you've got a good idea, hopefully now, of what each of the combinations will do for you.
I mean, we can run through those anyway. So you've got your orange plate, is your very messy cutting plate.
Your die cutting plate.
Yes. Then you've got your white plate, which is your top plate. Standard die cutting sandwich.
Yeah.
Then you have your embossing plate.
Specifically your die embossing plate. Yeah.
And obviously the mat is the same colour, so that is the mat that you need to use with your die embossing plate.
Or stencil embossing.
Or stencil embossing. Either with your top plate Or if that sandwich is just that little bit too much, then you bring in your embossing folder plate and you shim with 3 sheets, 4 sheets. Give it a try, whatever you want to do. But your embossing folder plate then, which is your tangerine embossing folder raspberry plate, if you use embossing folders, you're going to want to use the fruity combination, which is the orange and the raspberries, the way we always remember it.
Yeah.
You've got to do the fruity one. So
it does depend. If you're using one of those chunkier 3D embossing folders, you may need to step down a plate. So if I actually switch these this way, you can hopefully see the different thicknesses. So orange is thickest, then white, then green, then raspberry.
Yeah.
So if you try and put an embossing folder through and it's really not going, back it back out.
You can feel, you don't want to damage your machine. There could be too much pressure to go through. You can damage the cogs in the sides, holding these rollers into position. And you don't want to do that because that is machine in the bin.
Yeah, exactly.
That is no good any longer. So you just bring it down a level. It's always better to shim rather than to force. So it's if you've got that problem and you think that your sandwich is just a little bit too much. So if we had a 3D embossing folder, we'd probably come down to the white and the embossing folder plate. If that was still too much, then we'd bring the green and we would add some sheets of cardstock.
Take out your rubber mat though. So you would just use your raspberry plate and your green plate.
I have had one where I've used that and that with an embossing folder, because different brands,
different thicknesses,
exactly. Different factories, they're all different thicknesses. So just give it a try. Give it a try is the best thing. But remember, don't force them through your machine. Always add to a thinner combination rather than trying to ram a thicker combination through. Yeah. Your sandwich has got to be right.
You don't want to break your machine, you don't want to break your embossing folder either.
No, you do not. You do not.
Especially if you've got vintage ones. That are irreplaceable at this point.
Oh, they are. They really are. I have a set of these at home as well.
Do you indeed? Well. So hopefully that's given you lots of ideas of different ways to use your tangerine or die cutting machine to make backgrounds for whatever kind of project you are putting together. Don't forget, if you do use any of these techniques, we'd love to see what you make. Don't forget to tag us in your makes. Pop them onto our Facebook group, which will be linked below for you, or you can tag us across social media at Tonic Studios using the hashtag #ShowTonic. We'll be back, obviously, with more Tonic tutorials for you every Tuesday except the first Tuesday of the month, I think, is the schedule that we are currently working to. It's worked for 5 months so far, so I don't think we're changing it anytime soon.
Not at the moment.
If you enjoyed this video, please do give us a thumbs up and make sure you're subscribed to our channel and hit that notification bell.
Ding!
So you'll be notified every time we post a brand new video for you or go live, because we do also do that on occasion. Thanks very much for joining us, and we'll see you again very soon. Happy crafting!